Hello, everybody, and welcome to the See Me, Be Me podcast.
The next topic I wanted to go into with you, Abena, was the you briefly touched on it in your previous answer, but intersectionality. So with intersectionality, I know it's one of the key concepts of the work that you do. So could you explain to our audience what it means and why it's important in discussions?
I love trying to explain this because I'm really shocked sometimes. I say it and people are like, no, I don't. I actually don't know what you mean. And in fact, then they repeat the word. They think they're repeating the word back to me, and they say intersexuality. I said, it's not. It's got nothing to do with sexuality. It's intersectionality. Listen to me. So basically, it was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, and it's about the sort of balance, the power struggles between oppressed identities and dominant identities, and the fact that actually within one person you can have multiple layers of oppression and dominance and also privilege. So for example, and whenever I do any training, I use myself as an example because sometimes the personal touch helps so much more. So I'm a Black woman, very, very obvious. I'm a Black woman, but I'm a Black woman with this particular accent. This accent is a posh accent. This accent is an accent of the middle classes, the intelligentsia, and so on. So what usually happens, and it's really, really funny. So I'm going to give this example and then I'm going to explain it a little bit more in regards to theory. So what usually happens is that people meet me, and before I say anything, I can see them calibrating. Then I start speaking and I see the recalibration very, very quick. It's like you could see in their eyes, click. Okay, this is different. I'm dealing with something different than what I was expecting. Yeah. Okay, so this person is intelligent and this person has a closer approximation to my understanding of the dominant sort of discourse than I thought they would. Yeah. So I'm going to relate to this person slightly differently. That only comes from my accent. If I was still myself and I had a northern accent, completely different sort of interactions I'll have with people. So this accent just in itself gives me access to certain things that I wouldn't have access to just because I speak this way. And that's how crazy it is. But also there are like different levels. So for example, as a Black person, the closer your approximation to whiteness, the more power you have. So I'm sure you've heard of colorism. So the darker you are, the less power. The lighter you are, the more power. So that's why, for example, somebody like Beyonce, Rihanna, they are the really, really famous Black artists because they are closer in approximation to whiteness. But also like people, whenever I say this, they're like, oh, that's quite interesting. So for example, when it comes to your sexuality, obviously at the center of the power and the privilege are straight white men. Mm-hmm. They're straight, so they have more power because that is the dominant culture. They're white, so that's the highest level of power anyway, and they're men. there is misogyny, so they have power. But the next level when it comes to sexuality are gay men. Well, number one, because they're men, but also because they have more money. So men earn more money than women anyway. Two men together, especially if they don't have children, are going to have more power than, for example, a lesbian or a trans person. Mm-hmm. So it's not the case that it's static, that you can say that you can treat all gay people the same, or you can think that they are all subject to the same disadvantages. Because if you think about the multiple layers, if, for example, you're a Black lesbian woman, because people can define themselves in different ways. So a man can define themselves as a lesbian if they wish. So if you're a Black lesbian woman, you are going to manifest and experience the world completely differently from, even if one identity is changed, if you're a white lesbian woman, just one aspect of your identity has been changed. And yet the way that you manifest in this world is completely different. And so intersectionality is about the fact that so often, and this is the other example that I use, that in Labour, we have all these different meetings for different groupings. So we might have a meeting for women, and then we might have a meeting for Black people. Then we might have a meeting for gay people. Then we might have a meeting for disabled people. I fit into all of those. Which meeting do I go to? You're not, when we have a meeting where we're talking about women's issues and we don't incorporate all of those different aspects of my identity, then you are missing me. You're invalidating my full experience. And this happens a lot where you have these sort of identity groups, and you have a group for women, but actually there are gay women in that group, there are disabled women in that group. There are some women who have partners and some women who are single parents. They are experiencing the world in completely different ways. Just because they're all women doesn't mean that they all have the same life. They all have the same barriers. They all have the same stresses. I think, does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does, because I have often pondered, why. Yeah, when I go to meetings, especially in areas that I'm not known, people always have a stereotype of what maybe a young Black male should look like, or how they should act. And as soon as I consider, I came from working class background, but I consider my accent to probably be a more middle class accent. And I remember this one experience where I spoke to a senior councillor, and I was discussing to him what we did at the Blair Project and what our ambitions were. And I won't mention where the area was, but he had said, oh, so he looked puzzled. He had a face like you were talking about, like this is what I was expecting. The first question he asked me was, where are you from? So I said, oh, I'm from Manchester. He's like, no, but where are you from?
Oh God!
And I repeated, I was from Manchester. Oh, but whereabouts in Manchester are you from? And I didn't think anything of it, and I just thought, oh well, he's just probably asking, where in Manchester are you from, and But then I went back home and I spoke to a family member, and I told them about this bizarre scenario, and they were saying, do you know what it was now? It's probably because they don't believe that a well-spoken Black person can come from the north or from Manchester, and that you must be from London. And I never even thought about that. I was like, no.
There is such a bias against regional accents. There really is such a bias.
There is. And it's an interesting one, because I'm from Manchester, but people in the north don't think I'm from the north and think I'm from down south. And then people from down south can say, you're definitely northern. So I'm in the middle.
Like northern twang, but I think up north, it's not as pronounced as maybe other people's, and that's why you sound more southern to them. Yeah.
No, but it's just very interesting. But I didn't know there was a topic on it called intersectionality. So I've very much learned something new today. And you know what? Speaking about this topic, how do we? And it's always going to be to the end of time that every human being will have biases.
Yeah.
How do we? We're never going to get rid of them. But how do we encourage employers within the workplace to? I mean, it would be nice to eliminate these biases, but
it's not going to be eliminated.
It's not going to.
That is our standard way of working. We have to, as human beings, I mean, not as employers, we have to be biased in regards to the decisions that we're making. So we have to make, and I spoke about this in another podcast I did recently about slow and fast decision making, and we have to work with shortcuts the majority of the time, because we spent all of our time actually being very, very deliberate in the way that we think, we would hardly get anything done. So we use experience, we use things like social media these days, we use our upbringing, we use our cultures to identify what is the best case scenario? What's the best decision to make? But as I've said many times before, that's all right if, for example, it's in regards to the food that you eat, because, you know, you're biased against certain food. That's your own problem. You know, if you want to miss out on the cuisine of lots of the amazing cuisine from all over the world, that's your own issue. But when you're being biased in regards to recruiting people, that is actually impacting on other people's lives. So it's about being deliberate in your decision making when it comes to, especially when you are dealing with people who are not like you. Because when people are like you, affinity bias, which is, you know, when you have an affinity, you have somebody who's like yourself, and confirmation bias mean that you're more likely to recruit somebody who's exactly like you, and sometimes even people who've gone to exactly the same university as you. The percentage of MPs in Parliament who've gone to Eton and have gone to Oxbridge is phenomenal compared to the rest of the population. It is absolutely manic. I was reading one of my WhatsApp groups. I'm in so many WhatsApp groups, it's crazy. I've got my education WhatsApp groups, my political WhatsApp groups, my tech WhatsApp groups, my councillor WhatsApp groups. It's crazy. So I was reading one and they were saying that the number of MPs called Chris is going to overtake the number of MPs called David for the first time. I think there's a really high percentage of MPs called Chris. And it's not just because they're called Chris, but it's because they meet a certain demographic. So instead of, you know, Parliament being actually representative of the whole of the United Kingdom, the fact that we've got so many people with the same name Chris, who've gone to the same universities, the same schools sometimes, is because of confirmation bias, and because people automatically choose people who are exactly like them, rather than thinking, you know what, I know I've met a black person before and I didn't particularly like them and I thought they were an idiot, but this is a new black person with their own experiences, with their own knowledge. Can I see this black person at face value as a tabula rasa, as they call it, you know, blank canvas, blank, you know, sort of canvas, and actually experience them as themselves, rather than a sort of facsimile of all black people, or all Asian people, or LGBT people? Can I see this person as an individual rather than a representative of a group? And that's what makes the difference. I am Abena. When people talk to me and they want to, and I always stop them as soon as they say, oh, what do you think the black community think? I'm not the black community. I'm Abena. I am part of a black community. I'm not part of the whole black community. There's like 50 plus countries in Africa alone. Then there are people who are mixed heritage. Then there's people who are from the West Indies. They're all black people. I can't represent all of them. So please don't ask me about black community. What are you talking about? You don't ask about the white community, do you? So why are you asking about the black community?
It's one of the problems we have, especially in the West, is that we like to band all, you know, ethnic minorities into one box, and that, you know, there's one word I hate most, it's BAME.
BAME.
You know,
how can you band Indians, Chinese, Japanese, black people, Africans,
Romanians,
different nations, all of those people into? Are you crazy? The amount of culture in just one of those continents is phenomenal. The variation, the actual variation in the way that black people look is actually, there's more variation amongst black people than any other sort of ethnicity. And then you're banding us all into, stop your nonsense. But anyway, I digress.
It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. And we have this thing where, it's just, you know, white people and then everyone else. And it's just ludicrous, because like you said, there are so many different cultures, so many different nationalities, and you're trying to just band a bunch of different people into one box. And, you know, Blair's got, I'm going to hand over the question to Blair, but I just wanted to say a special announcement. If there are any parents out there or soon to be parents who've got children called Chris, make sure to, you know, put them in the direction of becoming a politician, because you've got a great opportunity. No, that's just my little joke for today. Well, Blair, go ahead.
Yeah, Abena, I was going to. We've just been talking just regarding, you know, like racial biases and people having their own views based on like their first views on like your skin color and their first perceptions and whatnot. So when I was reading on your background, there's a term that stuck out, is misogynoir, and just for
Yes.
misogynoir.
Yes, so that goes back to the intersectionality that I was talking about.
Yeah.
In that, and we've seen it played out very, very, very publicly and explicitly very recently, and it actually happens very, very frequently. But what I was talking about, myself as a Black woman, I manifest differently in this world than a white woman. So we have misogyny, and that's completely, it's all pervasive. And I say this to people all the time. As a Black person, if I was going to talk about the levels of oppression and what I think are the higher levels of oppression, I think the highest level of oppression is actually being a woman.
Yeah.
Because as a woman, I am not in a minority, but I'm treated like a minority. Women are not minorities. We're not minorities at all. We're 50%, sometimes more.
Majority,
than 50%.
yeah.
We're the majority, yet we are treated like a minority. And there are things that women are expected to do, and nobody actually even thinks about why. So, for example, you know, a woman, a working, you always say a working mother. You don't say a working father. Like, oh yeah, you know, in most households, when women have children, their labor increases. When men have children, the labor stays the same. As a woman, you are expected to go out to work and then come home to work again, but you're working for the family, unpaid labor.
Yeah.
And that is not valued. When we talk about the economy and we talk about capitalism values the patriarchy and the work of the patriarchy, what is defined by the patriarchy as of being of value. If we look at, sorry, I'm always getting on my soapbox. When you ask me a question, I don't answer directly. I will meander a little bit, talking about things which I think relate to it, and then and again, this is my ADHD coming in. But when you think about the careers that pay the best, they're the ones which are predominantly defined as men's jobs. The ones which are caring is not of value at all. So therefore we shouldn't pay for it. But when your parents have dementia and they're in a care home and somebody's caring for them, that's not of value. You don't care how they're looked after. Okay, when your child is at nursery, your child, your flesh and blood, the fruit of your loins is at nursery. You don't care how they're cared for. So you're happy to pay a pittance to the people who are caring for them, because care is not of value. It doesn't have monetary value, but it does, because if we all downed arms and we said, no, we're not going to do any caring anymore, nothing would happen. Everything would stop. If teachers said, we're not going to look after children. When I was a teacher, every single summer, you would hear about a child drowning in a pool, or when they went on holiday, or something happening. And as teachers, you say you're in loco parentis. We literally look after people's children and educate them as well. Yet teachers are not paid as much. It's anything which is seen as caring is of no value. Yet making money for the sake of making money is of value. What's that sort of nonsense? So that's the misogyny part. But then if you're Black as well, oh my God. So you've got the misogyny and the racism as well. So that's why it's called misogynoir, you know, noir as in black in French. You know, it sounds a bit posher than saying black, doesn't it? Misogyn black. Nah, misogynoir. It just sounds, it has a little, you know, spiciness. So, but it's about the fact that there are multiple layers playing on you. And also because of that misogynoir, I, as somebody who's autistic, people make the assumption that I'm not. Oh, Black people don't know that sort of thing. Or if, for example, I'm being blunt, because my brain is just like, well, the truth is the truth. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, I'm being rude, I'm being aggressive, I'm being horrible. And then it also feeds into adultification. So it's the same with our girls. So I'm sure you heard of child Q. And when they did the review of her case, they actually said if she'd been a white girl, she would not have been treated the way that she was treated. So black girls, from the age of about, studies have shown from the age of about 5, they start being adultified. They're seen as being more street savvy. They're sexualized earlier. They're seen as, so as I said, the adultification means that you no longer have a responsibility to care for them as children because you are adultifying them. If they're involved in child abuse, oh, they are complicit. They wanted it. Instead of, if it was a child from another sort of nation, it'll be, oh, they're a victim, instead of that they actually agree to it. So it's all pervasive. It's absolutely horrible, and we've seen it in politics recently in what was said about Diane Abbott. It's because she's a woman and she's black. It's not just because she's black, it's both of those things. Because I'm not so sure if he would have said it about a black man, but he felt more comfortable to say it about a black woman.
Yeah, I you know, it echoes the experience, like I say my mum has been through. Like, you know, I remember always one experience where we got some funding from a government organisation to conduct a feasibility study, and we had some partners at the time who had given their support, and then once it was announced, those partners complained to the government organisation, why have you given it to this woman to do the feasibility study? It's not the fact that they wanted to do it themselves. It was, why have you given it to this woman who operated at the time from an old school in terms of the business? And it was just shocking. And this organization, this government organization, had said, you know, this is the record, a record for people actually getting in contact with them, because normally any of these feasibility studies, no one bats an eyelid, no one cares, but they had so many people contact to say, why have you given it to this woman? And you know, it just stems from their insecurities around a black woman being involved,
and also
in
their assumption that it's tokenism. Their assumption that it's tokenism, that it's been given to her not because she's competent, but because she's black and she's a woman. And that happens so often, where people diminish your achievements sometimes, and they say, oh, you've only got that because you're black, you know, and they're trying to give black people a go. And that does happen a lot, because they don't want to actually admit that you are actually quite competent and you deserve that job yourself, just like they would if they were as competent as you.
Absolutely. And you know what? Before we head into the bonus questions, I've got one more question to ask. For any young black girls listening, or, you know, young black boys, and, you know, they're listening to this and they know, oh gosh, you know, it sounds like a minefield that I'm going to have to go through when I get into the real world of work. What tips, advice, and guidance would you give to those young kids to how to navigate through, you know, this world of being judged, these biases, and, you know, in that you've not got the same opportunity as, let's say, probably a white, Asian, or counterpart?
So I always come back to this quote that I absolutely love from Toni Morrison, and I'm paraphrasing it because I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but it says the very purpose of racism is to keep you justifying yourself. You know, people say that your nation or black people don't have art, they don't have culture, so you spend, you know, time studying a degree and doing some research and putting a book together to show people that black people have culture, when in fact what you could be doing is just, and again, this is my own point of view, this part, what you could be doing is just getting on with your life and just doing it. Yes, racism exists. Yes, misogyny exists. Yes, sexism. Yes, all of those isms exist. I do not have any power over people who are going to be racist towards me. I don't. There are some people, it doesn't matter how good I am, how much I achieve, they will never, ever like me. But why do I want to take on their dislike of me and manifest it in my heart when I don't have to? There will be times when you are in a job and you will be treated differently. You will never really be able to know, or most of the time you won't be able to know if it's because of racism. But if you don't feel right in that job, do you know what? There's more than one job in the world. Leave. There will always be another place where people will respect you, where people will give you the opportunities. So I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist. It will exist, but please do not waste your life thinking about it all the time, because then you are doing the job of the racists for them. They don't even have to be there calling you a monkey and doing this and doing that, because you will be diminishing your power because you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to have as great chances as other people. I'm not. Yeah, okay, whatever. So you're just going to sit on your bum and just think, oh, well, I'm not going to have a great life. No way. I don't have time for that. I do not have time for failure and for unhappiness and for mediocrity because somebody says that I should be. Let me show them. Let me show them. If you want to believe I'm mediocre, that's your problem. It's not mine. So please, 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 anybody who is listening who is younger, racism very much exists. Misogyny very much exists. Transphobia, all of those things, they exist. But please do not waste your whole life thinking about them and thinking, I cannot, because then you're the one who's limiting yourself. Because whatever is going on in your head, there's this thing about you do not know what people are thinking. So anytime you think that somebody's thinking something bad, that's actually you. It's actually you doing all of that. They haven't told you. So why don't you just say good things about yourself instead of all these bad things? What did the bad things achieve? Nothing. Don't waste your time.
Really inspired. Honestly, just before the bonus questions, I just wanted to ask one more question. So, I mean, just looking into the future, what are your, let's say, your hopes and aspirations to continue the advancement of diversity and inclusion?
So, I'm very, very excited because I said to myself, and I think it's so important to say things and to write things down so that you can manifest them. I said, anytime I talk to my friends, they always say, oh my God, you know, it feels like you're coaching me. So I want to do more coaching. And now I started doing more coaching. I said I wanted to work in international development because that's an area that can be very white and can be very, very much have that sort of air of white savior. So instead of the natives actually, you know, who are very, very educated people who know their own countries, actually being able to make the decisions, you have people parachuting in and telling them what's the best thing for them to do. So I've actually started some work in international development. So basically, it's the world, you know, I'm not stopping anywhere. The only person who can stop me is myself. And sometimes there will be somebody who will come over, they'll walk over with their little hurdle and they'll put it right in front of me and they'll think that's going to stop me. And I'll be like, if I'm feeling agile, I'll jump over it. If I'm not, I'll step aside and I'll go another way. My mother, and I say this in nearly every podcast, my mother uses this term. I love it so much. When sea dry, go by land. Yeah. So you were planning to travel on the sea and, oh, it's parched earth. There's no sea. Yeah, but you can drive. You can drive on the land. Why are you letting that stop you? Because the route that you wanted to take is no longer there. Find another route. You're just going to sit there and die. Don't be silly. So if people will put barriers in my way, but I just find another way. So it's the world. That's my next, my next thing.
You know who made it.
So we're gonna head to the bonus part.
Oh, okay, then.
The podcast. We'll try and keep it short. I mean, if you give me the wrong answer to this first question, then yeah, I won't bother asking the.
Okay, then. Okay.
So, Abena, does pineapple belong on a pizza? Yes or no?
My daughter thinks so. I don't particularly like it that much, but my daughter does, and I'm not going to say either, because you know I'm an incredibly inclusive person, and whatever you like, you do you.
I take that, but because your daughter isn't on this podcast, I'm going to go with your answer, and it was a no, and that is a big thumbs up here. I do believe, although I'm a very inclusive person, that pineapple just doesn't belong on a pizza. So for those people, it's we kick them off the podcast. Second one, if you could have dinner with 3, let's say, inspirational women from the past or even the present today, who would they be?
Oh, Audre Lorde. Oh my God. I love that person. Actually, on my WhatsApp, I never, ever, ever have profile pictures of me because I just think it's too vain. It's just not how my brain works. So I always have a quote from Audre Lorde. So my current one, I'm trying to find it. The one that I've had before, women are powerful and dangerous.
Yep.
And then I've had, you know, something, I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact words because her she's such a wordsmith, but something about if I want to fight for all women. You know, we're not free unless all women are free. And then the current one that I have, because I'm a busy woman, is life is very short and what we have to do must be done in the now. So Audre Lorde, definitely. Then Maya, of course, and yeah, and then Toni Morrison probably as well. I don't know. Jacinta Ardern actually would be quite interesting to speak to as well in regards to the politics. But yes, but really, I think it's really important, and I said it earlier, to draw the inspiration from within yourself, because when you're always looking at other people, and you're always saying, you know, these people are the people that I should be looking at for inspiration, for guidance, for whatever, you are diminishing your own power because you're saying that I don't have that within myself. And that beautiful spark that all those women had in them is in all of us. They just manifested it. So we all have that potential.
If you can have any superpower apart from what you've already been given right now, which is just amazing. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
You sort of try to cancel out the answer that I was going to give you, but I'm going to ignore you cancelling it out. I am so grateful for what God has given me. I have that superpower within me already. There's nothing else I need. All I need to do is carry on manifesting it and carry on growing it. And my superpower that I have is that I believe I can do anything. Anything. I don't believe there's anything that I can't do. Some of it I might not do as well as somebody else. But most of it, I do pretty well. There's like most things, you'll be surprised how many different things I can do. And I'm like, sometimes I sit down and I'm like, fuck you, Abena. You what? Are you even human? Some people do say to me, you human? Are you for real? When they read my list of jobs, they're like, is that one person? I had somebody, they introduced me when I was going to be doing a talk. And they said, when I read the list of things that she did, I was like, is that one person or is it 3? I don't understand.
Can we just check you are human and you're not a robotic, you're not a robot?
I do.
AI?
I'm a very crazy robot.
The amount that you're doing, and you know, you mentioned you might be up till 2-3 a.m. still working on projects, and you know. Like for example, today you set off at 3 a.m. to come up to Edinburgh, and the fact that you're still fully functional and on this podcast. If it was me, I'd be probably so tired and slurring my words. I would not have the energy. But that is a superpower in itself, that you still got so much energy. I don't know how much coffee you've had, Abena, today. I don't know.
I don't drink coffee. Coffee gives me a headache. I don't drink it.
See, that is natural energy right there.
It is. I always say to people, I don't need to take drugs. I don't even drink alcohol. I said I get high on my own supply. Like lots of people have to drink alcohol so that they can lose their inhibitions, so they can feel more comfortable. I don't need to do that. If I want to say something or do something, I will do it. I don't need any other external stimuli to make me do it. So no, I get high on my own supply all the time.
Just pure life energy.
Yeah.
Pure life energy. Researchers, collect a sample of this woman's blood. We need this everywhere. We need this. I want the same energy. Do you know what, Abena? This has probably been one of the most fun and one of my favorite podcasts I've done to date. And I'm sure I'll probably echo the same thing for Blair.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you know what we want to do is, you know what, we're gonna pass it back to you. This is your chance to plug anything, socials, website, whether you got a book. This is your chance to plug.
Oh yeah, that's one thing that I'll be moving on to at some point. I need to write a book, but I want to write a book about my musings on different things in life. I think that's what I'm going to do, a sort of philosophical musings. But I'll do that at some point. I'll get there at some point. It's but no, what I would like to plug is that obviously I do my EDI stuff, and I do it with schools, charities, and businesses as well. So if you're interested in any EDI consultancy work in regards to change management, organizational change, and LGBT, trans, neurodiversity, mental health, honestly, anything that you need me to talk about, I can, because my special subject is everything. And also I provide coaching as well. And one of the other things that I do, my charity is a sustainability, community cohesion charity. So I repair things for people for free, give them free food, do electrical repairs, IT support, budgeting advice, all for free. Because I really do believe that if somebody really needs something, then they shouldn't have to pay for it, especially if they don't have the means to be able to pay for it. So if you're interested in any of those things, and I do domestic abuse training as well, and we'll be starting some employability training specifically for women and women who have been subjected to domestic violence. So if you're interested in any of those things, you can contact me on LinkedIn, and I'm sure to answer.
Excellent. Well, that's all we've got time for on the See Me Be Me podcast, but make sure to catch the next episode of the See Me Be Me podcast. And for now, take care and see you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.